So now we've gotten our big whole cloth quilt basted up and we're ready to go. We're ready to put this big quilt on this little machine and free motion quilt it. So how are we going to do this? How is this quilt going to fit? How are we going to fit the bulk of this big quilt in this little space? First thing, we have to load it into the machine. So of course, lift up your presser foot and just start sliding it, the whole quilt, under your foot. We're working our way into the center. And I call this the squish, squish, flatten method, which sounds maybe, I don't know, really technical, but it's really not. I'm just squishing and squishing and squishing my quilt next to the arm of this machine, and then I'm flattening out this area that I'm actually going to be quilting. Once I get to the area that needs to be quilted, that's when I drop my foot and I put on my gloves and I start getting ready. Flatten this area out. Now, look at my quilt. See all this over here? Well, this would be a lot worse if I was rolling my quilt up into a log. Think about a log for a minute. Logs aren't very easily moved, right? So why in the world would we want to roll our quilt up into a log? It wouldn't make any sense. But most free motion quilters, when they're first getting started, they'll do that. They'll literally roll their quilt up and have that big bulky log right there in their arm of their machine. I really cannot advise that. I think it's very, very detrimental to free motion quilting and your freedom of movement with your quilt. Instead, just kind of squish it up here. Of course, you can't have all of your quilt hanging off the front of the machine table because this is going to drag. So instead, kind of keep shifting so that most of the quilt is back around behind the machine. So it's back around behind it. And then just flatten out a little area right here. Of course, this is a little bit of an awkward angle, but I hope you can get a good idea of how the quilt is really just kind of rustled up and squished into this area. But I didn't actually roll it, I didn't accordion pleat it, there's no real rhyme or reason to this. I just kind of squished it and flattened it. And that's where the name of my method came from.